one of the other issues that comes out in this chapter then is the importance of connecting this to inequality within our system. And McChesney raises this precisely because of the corporate media's control over the dominant media institutions of our time and the impact that that's going to have on the nature of the information that ordinary citizens have easy access to. Right. When we look at the figures and recognize that 80% of Americans hold such a tiny percent of the money in America, 7% of the money held by 80% of Americans as opposed to the top 1% who control 43%, and the conclusion here that this is not what democracy looks like. What McChesney recognizes is that an imbalance of wealth leads to an imbalance of power. And in the case of media corporations, that imbalance manifests itself in control over the content of the news media. So once again, he's concerned with the ability of the elite corporate ruling class to control the message in ways that allows them to manipulate the public. And so inequality is an important issue when we're talking about the news media that we have as a result of the structure and the content that we get as a result of that particular structure. So we can see here that the wealthy elites are about to walk off the plank, leaving ordinary Americans to fall. And this is what inequality looks like according to this particular cartoonist, Rodrigo, who is actually a Portuguese artist. A central issue, then, McChesney reminds us, a central issue in democratic theory has been how to reconcile social and economic inequality with political equality. That is, how can we actually achieve political equality when there is so much social and economic inequality? When the rich and powerful can call a politician and arrange a meeting in ways that ordinary Americans can never hope to achieve. When money buys surplus power, that creates a system of advantage. So if you want to look at more of Rodrigo's work, I've included a link to his work. If you think that McChesney or Rodrigo is somehow out of tune with what it means to be American, remember that the founders were not exactly comfortable with huge disparities either. That is, according to Ben Franklin, one of the leading lights of the founders, an enormous proportion of property vested in a few individuals is dangerous to the rights and destructive of the common happiness of mankind, and therefore every free state hath a right by its laws to discourage the possession of such property. So that while such a concept today would be framed in the mainstream corporate media as class warfare, as un-American, as socialist, it was a shared concern, as you'll find in others of your readings as well, amongst the framers, that the inequitable distribution of wealth. And they did not believe in a perfectly equal distribution. What they were concerned with was a fair distribution. But enormous disparities in wealth, the concern was that enormous disparities in wealth would create a new aristocracy, a class of people who were governed by a different set of laws than ordinary citizens. So these ideas that we find in McChesney, that we find in the cartoon of Rodrigo, are not new approaches to a problem. Instead, they actually reflect one of the deep-seated concerns of many of our nation's founders. One of the best sources for discussions of this issue, and of course it's not an issue that because of the structure of the news media we're going to find on the front pages of the New York Times, the Washington Post. These are not going to be top stories of the mainstream media on a regular basis, if at all. But if you'd like to read what alternative journalists have to say on this issue, one of my favorite sites on the topic is toomuchonline.org, and of course it, like so many sites of its kind, will link you to a number of other sites on the topic. And so the issues at hand here, when we're looking at the nature of the problem, is we have to remind ourselves as it was created, it can be taken apart and recreated in ways that are designed to benefit first and foremost our democratic institutions rather than benefiting the economic well-being of a half a dozen wealthy corporations and those wealthy Americans who derive much of their personal wealth from the commercial media. And that's the primary focus of this first section of the chapter. Next time we will talk about the second part of the chapter, in which we'll take a look at the fact that our media system is not naturally profit-driven, and that emphasis on naturally, as you find it in McChesney's subtitle, reminds us that hegemony works by making something appear natural. This is created, not natural. I'll talk to you again soon.